Hello student, I am Dr. Suman Ahuja, Assistant Professor, Kayachikitsa Department, Jyoti Vidyapeeth, Women's University. Today I will discuss some of the important points of diabetes mellitus like genetic predisposition, environmental factors, and the pathology. So first we'll take the type 1. So let me share a video for you. So diabetes mellitus, in both of the common type of diabetes type 1 and type 2, environmental factors and genetic susceptibility, they both interact with each other to determine that whether person will develop the clinical syndrome and what will be the timing of the onset, what will be the age of onset of the development of that disease in that particular people. That depends on the interaction of the environmental factors and the genetic susceptibility. However, the underlying genes precipitating environmental factor and pathophysiology, it substantially differ between the type 1 and type 2. First, if we'll see that type 1 diabetes mellitus, previously it was termed as insulin-dependent diabetes mellitus because it was invariably associated with the insulin deficiency, and that patient required replacement therapy, that replacement of the insulin. And type 2 diabetes, previously it was termed as non-insulin diabetes mellitus, that is NIDDM, because patients retain the capacity to secrete insulin, and the major insulin level are often higher than those seen in people without diabetes, because in type 2 diabetes there is an impaired sensitivity to insulin, and initially affected individual can usually be treated without insulin replacement therapy. However, 20% or more of the patients with type 2 diabetes mellitus will ultimately develop insulin deficiency requiring a replacement of therapy. So IDDM or NIDDM, these were only the misnomers. So with the pathology of the type 1 diabetes mellitus, generally it is considered as the T cell mediated autoimmune disease, which involves the destruction of the insulin secreting beta cells in the pancreatic islet. And if we see the natural history, that propose that genetically susceptible individual with the given beta cell mass were subsequently exposed to an environmental trigger, then developed beta cell autoimmunity, and that led to the progressive loss of beta cells. So this is a natural history of the type 1 diabetes patients, that there is an environmental trigger with genetic susceptibility that leads to the beta cell autoimmunity and loss of the beta cells. So this process, takes place in a prolonged time, that is months to years, and marked hyperglycemia accompanied by classical symptoms of diabetes occurs only when 80 to 90% of the functional capacity of the beta cells has been lost, because before that, before 80 to 90% of loss, patients usually patient usually is asymptomatic. Although patient has hyperglycemia, but patient is managing, body is managing, and patient will be asymptomatic. When 80 to 90% functional capacity beta cell has been lost, then the classical symptoms of diabetes appears. Now it is recognized that the pancreatic beta cells can persist in some individuals with very long standing diabetes and may never reach zero. It doesn't occur that there is a no beta cells. This is a new theory, and on the contrary, some individual presents with much higher level of beta cell viability, and that may reflect lower levels of physical activity or increased body mass. So obesity and the less physical activity is responsible for the diabetes mellitus if patient has viable beta cells and still patient is having hyperglycemia. So, and the pathology in the pre-diabetic pancreas, characterized by inflammatory lesion within beta cell, that is called as insulitis, with infiltration of islet cell by the mononuclear cells containing activated macrophages, helper, cytotoxic and suppressor T lymphocytes, natural killer cells, and the B lymphocytes. These are the pathological changes which occurs in the pancreas in pre-diabetic stage. Initially, these lesions are patchy, and until a very later stage, lobules containing heavily infiltrated islet cell are seen adjacent to the unaffected lobules. The destructive process in beta cell is only beta cell specific, but it is unclear why other hormone secreting cells, that is the islets such as alpha and gamma cells, they remain intact. So exactly phenomenon is not known that why this autoimmunity is only destroying beta cells. Now, what is a genetic predisposition? If it's a genetic predisposition, its relationship is very complex and it is multifactorial. If we see in twins, so monozygotic twins, they have a disease concordance rate of 30 to 50%, while zygotic twins have a concordance of 6 to 10%. And the risk of developing type 1 diabetes is 1:20 for those with the first degree relative, 1:20, and compared with 1:300 risk in general population. Children of mothers with type 1 diabetes have a 1 to 4% risk of developing type 1 diabetes, but children with fathers with type 1 diabetes have a 10% risk. So if father is with type 1 diabetes, then the children have the 10% risk of this. Then their mother is having type 1 diabetes. Despite the genetic influence, 80 to 85% of new cases present in individuals with no known family history of the disease. So this is the irony. So many research have been taken place, but still 80 to 85% of new cases present in individuals, they have no known family history. If we see the environmental predisposition, the wide geographical and seasonal variation in incidence and the rapid acquisition of local disease incidence rate in migrant from low to high incidence countries suggests that environmental factors have an important role in precipitating disease. Although hypotheses about the nature of these environmental factors is unknown, they may trigger type 1 diabetes through direct toxicity to the beta cells or by stimulating an autoimmune reaction directed against beta cells. Potential candidates fall into three main categories. This destruction can be due to viruses, may be due to specific drugs or chemicals, and dietary constituents are also responsible. If we see the infections, viruses are responsible. Viruses include mumps, coccidioides, retrovirus, rubella, cytomegalovirus, and Epstein-Barr virus. If we see the various dietary nitrosamines found in smoked and cured meats, that is preparations, which are smoky preparations, smoky non-veg or smoky vegetables. And coffee have been proposed as potentially diabetogenic toxin. Bovine serum albumin (BSA), it is a major constituent in cow's milk, has been implicated, since children who are given cow's milk early in infancy are more likely to develop type 1 diabetes than those who are breastfed. So PSA may cross the neonatal gut and raise antibodies that cross-react with the heat shock protein expressed by beta cell. It is also proposed that reduced exposure to microorganisms in early childhood, that a hygiene hypothesis that limits the maturation of the immune system and increasing susceptibility to the autoimmune disease. So these are the various environmental predisposition. Some of the metabolic disturbances of type 1 diabetes. Patients with type 1 diabetes, they present when progressive beta cell destruction and crossed a threshold, means 80 to 90% of the beta cell has been damaged, at which adequate insulin secretion and normal blood glucose levels can no longer be sustained. And above a certain level, high glucose levels may be toxic to remaining beta cells, so that profound insulin deficiency rapidly ensues, causing the metabolic sequel. And what are these metabolic sequences? Hyperglycemia leads to glycosuria and dehydration, causing fatigue, polyuria, nocturia, thirst, and polydipsia, susceptibility to urinary and genital tract infection, and later tachycardia and hypotension. Unrestrained lipolysis and proteolysis result in weight loss. Ketoacidosis occurs when generation of ketones exceeds the capacity of their metabolism. Elevated blood H ions drive potassium ions out of the intracellular compartment, while secondary hyperaldosteronism encourages urinary loss of potassium ions. Thus, patients usually present with a short history of hyperglycemia symptom, thirst, polyuria, nocturia, and fatigue, infections, and weight loss, and may have developed ketoacidosis. Now, type 1 diabetes in adults. Earlier it was meant that type 1 diabetes occurs only in the children. Let's see what exactly is the concept behind this. So, why type 1 diabetes is classically thought to as a disease of children and young adults, most commonly presenting between 5 and 7 years of age and at or near puberty. It can manifest at any age, with as much as half of cases thought to develop in adults. It is also possible for patients who have a more insidious onset of diabetes to have an autoimmune etiology. So these people are sometimes described as having slow onset type 1 diabetes or latent autoimmune diabetes of adulthood. That's called as LADA. LADA is defined as the presence of islet autoantibodies in higher titer without rapid progression to insulin therapy. So patients with LADA can often more rapidly often present and be managed similarly to those with type 2 diabetes, but they do progress more rapidly to requiring insulin treatment for glucose control. So not all expert committees recognize LADA as a diagnostic category, however, and consider LADA is just a subset of autoimmune type 1 diabetes developing in adulthood. So it was all about genetic predisposition, some of the environmental factor, pathology, and metabolic disturbances in type 1 diabetes and type 1 diabetes in adults. So it was the first part of the lectures where we have I have covered all these points. Next lecture we will cover the type 2 diabetes, their concept, and the investigation and treatment part. So thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope it would be helpful for the students. Thank you very much.